Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. Means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Jordan Kitchens, Cassius Bazzali back there on the ones and twos. 2 more hours to go in this work week for us. Hopefully it's in the rearview mirror. If not, we'll get you to the finish line. Preston Guy in 15 minutes talking Tiger football. We'll check in with Joe Healy, who is in Arlington at Globe Life. We're going to see a little bit about SEC baseball over the weekend from Joe at 1:30. Also got a little bit of baseball at the end of the hour with some MLB draft rankings early on. Where's Derek Curiel? Where's Jake Brown? How about LSU signees? We'll discuss a little bit of that at 1:45. Ross Jackson will be here at 2 talking about the Saints off season. Top 100 quarterbacks of the 2000s. ESPN did a list. LSU's got a couple on the list. We'll talk about where they rank. And Sam Spiegelman will wrap us up at 2:30 talking a little bit of LSU recruiting, specifically a couple of the biggest names in the state of Louisiana in the class of 2026. So we'll talk to Sam an hour and a half from right now. All football in the second hour, some baseball sprinkled in hour number 1. LSU and Indiana set to get underway from Jacksonville coming up in a couple of minutes. We'll start there briefly in our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
LSU is grabbing the bats right now in the opener of the Jacks College Classic. They'll take on Indiana here in a matter of moments. Lynn Rollins and Ben McDonald on the call. You can watch it on d1baseball.com. I've got the stream pulled up right here, and I'll keep tabs on it. Get you some scores as we move along. If you're not going to pay to watch that, it's $30. You want to hang out with us for a couple hours? I'm not going to complain about it. LSU's lineup is posted. Derek Curiel is going to play center field and lead off. Jake Brown is going to play right field. You're going to have 2 left-handed hitters right at the top of the lineup against a left-handed pitcher from Indiana today. John Pearson is a designated hitter. He will hit in the 3-hole today. Zach York will hit 4th. Stephen Milum's the shortstop, hitting 5th. Kate Arambidi is going to do the catching and hit 6th. Seth Dardar, left-handed second baseman for LSU, will hit 7th. Braden Simpson is going to play left field in the place of Chris Stanfield. He'll hit 8th, and Trent Caraway is in the 9-hole. In this lineup against Indiana left-hander Tony Newbeck, what you're seeing here is LSU getting as many right-handers as they can within reason. Omar Cerna could technically play designated hitter if you wanted to move some things around, maybe put Caraway at second base and put a right-handed hitter somewhere in the outfield, maybe Simpson in that case. The guy that is being left out here is Tanner Reeves. He is essentially, with Stanfield out, Tanner Reeves is the one guy that's not in the lineup today that you generally do see. Obviously, Mason Braun would fit into that category as well, but Braun has essentially been a DH for LSU, and you've got that spot filled by John Pearson. This is about as right-handed as LSU can get. Pearson will hit right-handed, Milum will hit right-handed, Arambidi will hit right-handed, Simpson will hit right-handed, and Caraway will hit right-handed. That's 5 of them. So I think that is interesting. I don't believe it to be. I think LSU is a stronger team against right-handed pitching. Now, technically speaking, you should see more right-handers than left-handers. I think left-handers make up something like 18, 19% of the population. So you should see more right-handed pitchers, and I think that's LSU's strongest side because Curiel and Brown were not great against lefties last year. We'll see what Zach York becomes in that situation. I think that Braun and Reeves are really good hitters as well, and they're not in the lineup today. So I'm curious to watch LSU today and tomorrow against left-handed pitching. Chris Stanfield is not in the lineup. John Eads from WAFB is reporting that Stanfield is still in a cast today in pregame warmups. Don't know if that's a hard cast. Don't know if it's a soft cast. Jay Johnson was here on our station on After Further Review yesterday and talked about Stanfield, said he's still hurt from that collision with the catcher on Saturday. I know from talking to Jay postgame on Monday that the swelling was still there. Jay was asked about it on Wednesday and said that it had gone down a little bit. Jay said yesterday on Thursday the swelling had gone down massively, so that's really good news. Jay said he was optimistic. Wasn't sure if he was going to play this weekend. Right now, Chris Stanfield doesn't need a ton of at-bats. He's not missing anything of real significance at this point in the schedule. If you need to give him an extra 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 days off just to make sure he's completely healed, do it. If he can help you pinch running, that's great. If he can help you in the outfield before he can swing a bat, that's great. But if he doesn't, he's not up to it, he doesn't need to. This team has got a ton of depth, and if you've got to get some at-bats to Tanner Reeves, get some at-bats to John Pearson, get some at-bats to Mason Braun, get some opportunity on defense for William Patrick or Daniel Harden, that's fine at this time of year. Chris Stanfield has been playing SEC baseball for 3 full seasons. This is year number 4. So you make sure he's as healthy as possible. And Jay Johnson sounded pretty optimistic about that on Matt's show yesterday. Based on that, what Jay said, not sure if he's going to play this weekend, and then him having any kind of cast on that pregame today, it would surprise me if Stanfield played at all this weekend. That's just my hunch. I don't know that. Haven't talked to anybody about it. I'm listening to what Jay Johnson says here and then paying attention to the fact he's got a cast on and understanding these games in the whole grand scheme of 56 are not that big a deal. And he's a guy that's got a ton of bats under his belt, doesn't need to make sure he gets that experience. So that's where you are with the only injury that LSU is really dealing with at this point. Since we last left you yesterday, LSU has announced its pitching plans for the weekend. Today is going to be Kason Evans, as we thought, and tomorrow will be Cooper Moore, as we thought. It's TBA on Sunday, and I think that probably raises some eyebrows for some folks going, what, William Schmidt? Like, isn't he the most talented guy? He struck out 7 last week. I mean, yeah, he got hit a little bit, walked a couple of guys, but wouldn't you want to get him back out there? That doesn't mean he's not going to go back out there. I truly believe this with Jay Johnson. I truly believe. There are some things he says that I kind of push to the side. He always says his player is the best in the country at that position, and I don't have any problem with that. But like sometimes I go, I don't know if he's definitely the best in the position. But I'm taking him at his word on this one. I think more often than not, when he puts a lineup together and a plan for the weekend together, he is truly considering what gives us the best chance to win these games. And I think he believes there's a possibility that starting Evans on Friday gives him the best chance to win, that Moore on Saturday is a very likely candidate to work deep into that game and throw well, and there's a real possibility that William Schmidt might be of use on Friday or Saturday. And I think if he finds that in a matchup, I think he'll put him in the game. Like, I really think that. And I believe that there are other guys he's very confident in. And my guess is, as I sit here on Friday afternoon, that Schmidt pitches on Sunday and he starts the game on Sunday. That's what I think will happen. But I don't think that Jay Johnson's playing coy with Central Florida. I don't think that he's being deceitful where he knows the plan. I think he believes there's a chance that Schmidt might come out of the bullpen on Friday or Saturday. You have not cemented yourself into a pitching plan 1 week into the season. Like, if Jay Johnson did not announce a starting pitcher for game 1 of the championship series last year, like, we knew who was going to pitch that game. That would be playing coy. That would be gamesmanship. I don't think this is. I think this early in the season with this staff and that pitcher in this situation, he's just doing what he thinks is best to win a game. And my guess is that the right-handed guys out of the bullpen will be the usual suspects coming out the first 2 days. I think it'll be Rizzi. I think it'll be Guidry. I think it'll be Fontenot. I think it'll be Sheeran. I think Cowan maybe. But those are the right-handed guys you're going to see, Fontenot. But I wouldn't rule Schmidt out of that. I just think eventually you're going to get to him on Sunday. And I'm very, very excited. Anxious is the wrong word. Curious to watch Evans and Schmidt pitch. As I've said a couple of times in the early going here, preseason, first week, my confidence level as far as starting pitching is the highest with Cooper Moore. I like track record. I like guys that have done it. Now, that causes me to grossly undersell Paul Skeens preseason. It causes me to undersell Cade Anderson preseason. And it might cause me to grossly undersell Kason Evans and William Schmidt. I'm okay with that. It's just the way I approach the season. Now, if I see something with my eyes in October, November, and January that makes me shift, then I'll do it. But I think because Cooper Moore's done this before, because he throws so many strikes, because I love his changeup, because he's not being asked to do something he's never done before, I think he's going to have a really, really nice season. I don't think he's a dominant arm right now. I think he's a really good 2 or 3. The other two guys are trying to prove themselves. So my confidence level is the highest this weekend, next weekend with Cooper Moore. Until I see something different from Evans and Smith, that's what I want to see this weekend. That is what I want to see this weekend. I'm curious how the lineup shakes out. I think there will be consistent defensive switches, and I think you'll see a lot of different pitchers. And I'm comfortable and confident that LSU is going to play a good weekend this weekend. Off to a pretty good start here in the first inning. LSU's got a couple guys on base with 2 outs. Stephen Milam digging in against former Missouri hurler from the left side for Indiana. So I'll keep you posted as the day moves forward with scores and updates from this one. But we'll talk a lot about football as we move forward. Preston's going to talk football. Ross Jackson's going to talk football. Sam Spiegelman's going to talk football. I've got a list from ESPN. Still a little bit of baseball. Joe Healy's going to jump aboard with us, and then we'll hear from. I'll also talk about this list that ESPN put together about top prospects as well. Excited about that. But Tigers score first. Stephen Milam, RBI single. LSU will lead at 1-0 as they go to the bottom of the first there in Jacksonville. Scores to come. We'll keep things rolling on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Look, this part of the world, the peace of mind you can get from a Generac home standby generator is priceless. Because, we've got hurricanes that roll through most falls. We've got nasty summer afternoon storms. That winter events can happen from time to time. We've had one the last 2 years. Know that you're not going to lose power in those instances. Get that outdoor home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Neil and Melissa have been running this shop for 40 years. You can go to the big box store, and they're prevalent here in Louisiana. Of the top 5 dealers of Generac generators in Louisiana, 4 of them are national and have been invested in. But Boudreaux's Electrical is family-owned, family-operated, been that way for 40 years. So if you're getting that generator, why not do it with someone local who gives you phenomenal customer service? They're going to send a tech out, get that installation done. They're going to monitor that generator 24/7. If there is an issue, they'll come fix it to make sure that you got the peace of mind to know when that power goes out, and we know it does, that your lights stay on, your AC stay on. That's folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. You can give them a call at 985-397-1562, 985-397-1562. It's Boudreaux's Electrical.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
March Madness is heading to Las Vegas, and LouisianaSports.net is sending one of you plus a friend with it. We're giving away a 3-night Las Vegas getaway from Wednesday, March 18th through Saturday, March 21st. Just in time to watch all the madness. Hotel stay, flights covered. All you have to do to enter is head to LouisianaSports.net, click the March Madness link getaway, sign up now before the March Madness Pick'em launches, get yourself entered, and you can be watching the tournament from Las Vegas instead of your couch. Winners will be announced Monday, March 2nd.
Not your best read.
It wasn't. But
I've heard better.
We're still working on it.
That's gonna be the new thing. Every time you read that, I'm gonna grade it.
Facts.
I'm gonna grade on a harsh curve. All right.
I feel like
Just
you should.
I want you thinking about that when you're reading it.
I'm
I
a
want you to think
grown
about
man.
Hunt's
I
grading
think-
as he's listening.
Yeah.
Everything's on the line here.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm a grown man. I feel like it should be graded hard. Like, if you cannot read a promo at this point, it needs to be graded hard. No, most definitely.
Said I couldn't even read good.
Yeah, I know.
Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Preston Guy with us on Fridays with TigerBait.com. He joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, how are you?
Hunt, if that's a failing grade on the promo read, never come to my show and grade my any of my ad reads.
I didn't give him a failing grade. I just said it wasn't his best. I'm trying to motivate over here.
Right. I really just don't even want to hear your feedback on my ad reads. Oh boy.
As long as the check clears, right? Hey, let's talk a little bit about off-season workouts. I don't know. I know you've constantly got your ear to the ground. Hearing anything? It's early. I know that people were buzzing over the video with Sam Levitt grinding on the stationary bike. Any buzz on your end from the workouts that the guys are going through now?
It's funny. There's actually a video that got put out this morning by Lamar Brown going over 20 miles an hour at 300 pounds. That is an impressive feat at that man's size, especially for such a young player. You see why he was the number 1 overall player in the country. But, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you only get snippets and things there. You do see a few top speeds leaking out. We saw that about 2 weeks ago. And they certainly have some speed on this team, but it really is hard to get a true gauge of how the workouts are going until you see him for spring ball and you say, boy, that guy bulked up, or, that guy's really moving well.
I figured you would point me in a direction, and you did there. I hear a lot from LSU fans, and this is the way recruiting generally works, is, well, you're looking at the defensive line. Well, they got those 4 freshmen coming in. And I always go, Are you sure you want to do that? These are really talented freshmen, but, how do you feel about Lamar? It's Lamar Brown, Deuce Geralds, Trenton Henderson, and then obviously Richard Anderson. How do you feel about those guys' ability to get to the field pretty quickly?
Yeah, I always feel a little nervous anytime you plug in a true freshman. Now, I'm not talking about redshirt freshman, because you remember, I don't know if you remember Sam Montgomery, but as a true freshman, he was spectacular. He was really good out there. But as a true freshman, that makes me a little nervous anytime in the trenches. Now, I'm more nervous on offensive line than defensive line because typically, offensive line, you just need muscle power. You just need to be a grown man, growing a beard, and, have a nasty attitude to you. It's very difficult to find a true freshman ready to play. Emory Jones and Will Campbell did it for sure. They had some growing pains, though. Make no mistake about it. They had a lot of growing pains out there. So I would argue on the defensive line, I would like for them not to have to rely on these guys. Let's see if they emerge into the season, maybe, toward the halfway point of the season, and they emerge as guys who can come in and be used situationally, right? Think like even Harold Perkins as a freshman. Yeah. Toward the end of the year, they realized, hey, look, he doesn't know how to play the full position of linebacker, but, boy, we can really get him on the edge and make an impact. That's the kind of stuff I like to see freshmen on the defensive line, because I just question whether down to down, are they going to be able to play with technique and leverage? Are they going to be able to clog holes, right? That's a big part of playing defensive line too, is being able to take up the block and make him go outside of you so, the linebacker can clear it up, or the star role can clear it up in a lot of times. So that is what I would have hesitations about. But I would also be a little disappointed if all 4 redshirted and didn't play at all this year.
I won't hold you to this 3 or 4 years from now, but what do you think Lamar Brown's career arc looks like based on playing time and even position and role and production? What do you think that looks like in your eyes?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, and the big thing that's going to define him is what role does he really stick to, because there's certainly lots of players who are very talented, and they're kind of come in as an athlete, but if they don't find one role and stick to it, a lot of times it's very difficult to get the career going, and particularly if you don't pick the right one. I mean, think about a guy like Russell Shepard, who was just very talented, 5-star. They rated him as a quarterback, not even an athlete coming out of high school. And, it didn't cut it at quarterback. He chose to move to receiver. Well, turns out he was a good wide receiver athletically, but what really made him special was, the fact that he could play quarterback with that athleticism, right? So really just wasn't as special, but maybe he just wasn't able to learn the playbook and be as polished passer enough to be a quarterback like that. Similarly with Harold Perkins, they just really could not find, and I guess until they got the star role with Blake Baker, they really never found a true home for him. It's going to be important, and there's a lot of questions with Lamar Brown. Now, I do think that he's going to be an edge rusher in this defense, but the question is, does he play offensive line first? I mean, there might be some pressure. I'm looking at that right tackle spot. Maybe he could get on the field earlier and contribute more on offensive line. And, a lot of people argue, in fact, your guy Taylor Sharp, who covered the U High games, he'll tell you all day, he's a better offensive lineman than he is defensive lineman. I maybe that's true, but I have trouble at believing it at 20.24 miles per hour that, he can't be a very effective defensive lineman. So that's what I'll be keeping a close eye on, is if they can find a position where he truly is his best and keep him at it, keep him focused at it.
I think those offensive linemen were kind of the defensive line, one of the biggest names in the signing class. Is there another true freshman you're kind of looking at? I know Von Finney was thought of pretty well, and they're not super deep at corner, so that's a guy that I think a lot of folks might look to as a potential freshman that could get to the field. It's in this era of the transfer portal, when they bring as many guys in as they do, you don't expect a lot of freshmen to burst through and be impact guys. But is there anybody beyond those 4 defensive linemen that you look at from this freshman class and think maybe could add some depth in year one?
Yeah, outside of defensive line, because obviously Richard Anderson is sitting right there.
Yeah.
Corey Barber is an exciting one.
He is.
It really is contingent, because the thing is about wide receiver, they brought in, 13 new guys to play wide receiver this year with one returning player, Philip Wright. There's not really an established pecking order, right? It's not like these, other than, who's the guy they brought, Winnie Watkins, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like George McDonald and Sawyer Jordan have, deep cut relationships with any of these receivers and know what to expect. It's going to basically be all right, let's all go out there and see who the best is. So that means a guy like Corey Barber, a 5-star freshman, is going to have an opportunity to go out there and impress at a position that, frankly, true freshmen, they have opportunities to compete. It's not like you have to memorize an entire playbook like quarterback, and it's not like you have to be this elite strong guy. If you can move around and you can catch the ball, if you're just a raw athlete, a lot of times receivers have an easier time getting to the field than other position groups do. So that's a guy I'll be keeping an eye on. Obviously, there's a lot of other guys in this class, like Jamari Mack, Von Finney, you mentioned him, that'll be definitely worth keeping an eye on.
How important do you think this spring practice is? You always get a different answer from different people when you ask about the importance of spring ball. What about this one?
Oh, man, look, I'm going to, me, I love spring football. I'm going to say this is very important. It would be even more important if your starting quarterback was there and got some time to gel with chemistry with his receivers and get settled in. But you're not going to have him, but it's still very important. I mean, you're bringing in, 53 new players that all have to learn how to play with each other, how to learn a drastically new system. On offense in particular, because that's basically an entirely new unit. Now, the defense, yes, you're bringing in a lot of guys, but there's a lot of defensive continuity. And, in fact, they're keeping Jake Olson, the safeties coach, who turned down a job at the Commanders, which is that is not a small deal in the least bit, that a coach would pick LSU over an NFL job. That's not a little deal at all. So it's the defense, I think, it's not as important, but the offense, I mean, they just are starting from scratch, man, completely nuked the whole thing and started from the ground over. You got to build some continuity. It's upsetting that Sam Levitt's going to be limited, but you do have a good chance to let the other two guys duke it out and determine who the backup quarterback is.
What does this say about Jake Olson staying here? Virgil Osbury came on Matt Moscano's show earlier this week and said, yeah, Washington did offer him that job, and he stayed at LSU at the same position. Like it was safety coach both ways. Like, what does that suggest about what LSU's got right now?
Yeah, I think it suggests that if you're a guy who enjoys recruiting and does not mind the NIL grind, LSU is a job that it's not just a no-brainer to go leave for the NFL over LSU. I think it also shows that Lane Kiffin and the administration is showing commitment to staff retention. There was maybe some questions about that under Brian Kelly, and a lot of times you're just like, LSU paid a bunch of money, and Brian Kelly had won a bunch of games at Notre Dame, and you're seeing moves like Mike Denbrock goes back to Notre Dame, and you're just kind of sitting there trusting, well, that's okay. Brian Kelly makes $10 million. He knows what he's doing. He'll be able to pick an offensive guy. And turns out he was not, and that was a big problem. And turns out that Brian Kelly actually made some behind-the-scenes moves that resulted in Denbrock wanting to leave. So to me, the fact that we're seeing two very different results in terms of both player retention, in terms of good players staying that you want to stay, and in terms of coaching retention, it's very encouraging to me.
I would concur with that. And Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, all over the LSU football beat. He's with us on Fridays. Have a good weekend, man.
All right, talk to you soon, man.
That is Preston Guy with Tiger Bait. Our Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. It's a Lenten Friday. Get on by and see them at Corks looking for a shrimp po' boy. They got you covered. Maybe just a shrimp platter. catfish platter. They got a combination platter that is excellent as well. Those shoestring fries, all the sauces you could possibly want. They got your shrimp, you got your tartar sauce, your cocktail sauce, of course, ketchup and all that as well. But Cork sauce is where you need to go. They're on Government between Foster and Jefferson. Check them out this Friday. Friday's moving forward over there at Corks. The menu's online at corksfishandshrimp.com. We'll check in with Joe Healy. He is in Arlington watching some baseball, but just a thought on SEC Week 1 and entering Week 2. We'll do that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com. I tell you that the folks at Highland Insurance Group, Jonathan Carbo, his whole team are fantastic on the property and casualty side, and they are. If you're a business, you're looking for a second set of eyes or another option for your commercial insurance program, check them out. They are happy to help you with that. They also do group and employee benefits. That's a huge, huge deal, as you know, if you're running a business, because you want to keep your employees happy. You want to recruit new employees. And one of the ways you can do that is by having phenomenal benefits. There's one carrier in the state that is up in those premiums year over year. If that's been your experience and you're sick of it and you're looking at that next renewal going, I just can't believe this continues to happen, well, take another look. The Howard Insurance Group is happy to help you out with those group and employee benefits. Get a second opinion. Get a second option. They've got dozens of carriers that they are contracted with, and they can give that a look for you. We're happy to do it. They do it all the time. They're based here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Find them online at HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Friday show is brought to you by Corks. LSU underway in Jacksonville. Tigers lead 1-0 over Indiana. Going to be a fun weekend over there in Jacksonville. Also a fun weekend in Arlington, Texas. Joe Healy with us on Thursdays generally, but he's over there in Arlington right now. Good enough to give us some time in game on this Friday. Of course, he's with D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. Joe, thanks for that time. How are you?
Doing well, but I got to ask, is with the Tigers playing right now, is anybody listening to this, or is it just you and I?
It's not just you and I. There are various ways to handle both, which I'm currently doing. I'm doing the show and watching the game, so I wouldn't suggest we're at our peak viewership and listenership, but it's not zero. I can promise you that.
Okay, fair enough.
So, LSU is going to play Oklahoma in its SEC home opener, week 2 of the season. Sounds like the Sooners were really solid last week. What did you like?
Yeah, I think they probably played a little bit over their heads last weekend. So, I think they'll maybe come down a little bit to earth as time goes on, but they certainly showed the makings of a team that's going to be really, really tough. If that Cam Johnson, you and I kind of had a good laugh about being nervous about Cam Johnson as a Friday guy, and he just kind of laughed back at us, right? Like, he looked awesome. He checked all the boxes, the swing and miss stuff, the fact that he was able to work his way out of jams. He kept his head on his shoulders, all that kind of stuff. And then LJ Mercurius behind him was just as good. So, I think we can sit here and nitpick a little bit and say, they're not going to get quite that much starting pitching week to week. It felt like the offense maybe not as physical and productive as what we saw last weekend, but certainly I think we're definitely adjusting our expectations for this team upward, because they showed an upside that I frankly didn't know they had last weekend.
Pair of big injuries. Your thoughts on both? One in Lexington at shortstop, one in Auburn at second base. What are you hearing about those two guys and what impact that may have?
Yeah, with Rembert at Auburn, I'm not too worried about it, except from the standpoint of their lineup is really scuffling right now, and I'll see them up close this weekend. I'm looking forward to kind of diagnosing that and seeing what the deal is there. But I think they're playing him cautiously just to make sure he's ready for SEC play. If they were in SEC play right now, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe they'd push a little harder to get him on the field. But so I'm not ultimately too worried about that one. The Tyler Bell one, the word indefinitely always makes you nervous. Shoulder injuries like the one we saw in that instance make you nervous. I think about Nolan Souza last year for Arkansas. It was a very similar situation. I was there for that one too. Just those shoulder injuries tend to be really, really tricky. And make no mistake about it, without Tyler Bell, Kentucky's ceiling is limited. Now, they still have a pretty high floor. Defensively, Luke Lawrence is basically a shortstop who is playing second base. So I think they'll be mostly fine there. But in a lineup that still we're questioning how much physicality they're going to have, he was definitely someone that brought some of that to the table. So, again, it limits the ceiling. I like their floor, but I think we can, adjust any expectations a little bit downward for the upside of Kentucky based on that injury.
And last one from week 1, we'll go to week 2. Any concern with Vanderbilt going 1-2?
No, actually, I felt a little bit better about Vanderbilt, weirdly. That was one of those 1-2 weekends where I think you could sit there and actually pick out a lot of positives. I mean, they hit 9 home runs, and we've been begging Vanderbilt to hit more home runs for years now, and we'll see if that's sustainable because 6 of them came from 2 guys, Brody Johnston and Colin Barzey, and they're not going to hit 3 home runs every weekend, so we'll see about that. But I have a lot of faith they're going to pitch better than what we saw last weekend. I don't have a lot of doubt about that, and if this offense is even a little bit more physical, well, then that's a sight for sore eyes, because certainly that's been the question we've had about them since that 2021 team came up just short in Omaha.
All right, moving forward to this week, and Joe Healy is our guest with D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. You can find him at the Highway to Hoover podcast as well, wherever you get your podcasts. I think some scrappy underdogs this week. I've heard you talk about Xavier, who will face Arkansas this week. And I watched Kent State on Monday, and they were great in Hammond on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday down here in South Louisiana. I think they can hit a little bit in there in Knoxville. What intrigues you about some of the lesser names on the schedule this weekend?
Yeah, Xavier just has a lot of physicality. They might honestly be the most physical non-SEC team I saw all fall. Like, they look like a football team. Whatever they're doing in the weight room at Xavier is clearly working. Now, they do lack a little bit in athleticism, so they are making a little bit of a trade-off there. But certainly in terms of physicality, and they're missing a couple guys, and they still won a series against East Carolina. So that stands out about that team. Kent State is just as solid as ever. Like, that program operates at a high level. They're kind of a little bit like Wright State, 2 separate conferences, same part of the country. A little bit like Wright State, and then you put them on the non-conference schedule, and you kind of have put yourself on notice of like, hey, we could lose a game this weekend, and it wouldn't be all that shocking. One of the other ones I'll put on your radar is Kennesaw State. They're taking on Florida, and that's a coaching staff at Kennesaw that does a really good job. They have a scouting background. Their head coach and their recruiting coordinator were scouts for a long time, and so they do a really good job of finding guys who aren't at Georgia or Georgia Tech, but guys that are good enough to play at that level. So they've got the talent to, especially if Liam Peterson tonight, issues some walks at the rate he did last weekend. He can be inconsistent like that at times, and I think Kennesaw State's just talented enough to come up with something there. And one more I'll throw at is Missouri State, one of the more talented mid-major teams in the country. They have, for my money, the best prospect not in a power conference in Caden Bogenpool, their center fielder. And so that's a name to watch if you just happen to be flipping around and catch one of those games this weekend against Ole Miss.
You mentioned Liam Peterson at the front of that Florida rotation, Aiden King right there behind him. How do you think that shakes out as the season moves forward with Kevin O'Sullivan's staff?
Yeah, I kind of thought that I wasn't surprised they ran Peterson out on Friday necessarily. I feel like that's just deference to the veteran guy, but I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up being Aiden King at some point. He's just so much more consistent at this point. You look at the numbers last year between him and Peterson, and King was clearly the more consistent guy. And Peterson reminds me a little bit of like a right-handed A.J. Puck when he was at Florida, where it's like clearly a great prospect, clearly capable of doing great things. He'll occasionally have these outings that just blow your socks off, and you think you're looking at, one of the best aces in college baseball. And then he also has outings where he struggles to get out of the early innings because his command isn't there. Some of his stuff is kind of hittable at times. He's walking guys. So I have a little bit of nervousness about him as a Friday guy. I don't want to say I don't trust it because he's had so many good outings that suggest that we can trust him from time to time. But I think we just need to allow for the fact that he's going to have 3 or 4 of those starts that just aren't going to be as smooth as you think.
Realize you weren't in Baton Rouge last week, but you're obviously paying attention, and these names are big enough that I don't feel bad asking you about it. But Kason Evans and William Schmidt, just kind of meh box scores and just by the eye test to me last week. Cooper Moore was fantastic, the Kansas transfer. How do you feel about LSU's rotation after a week?
Fine. Like, I'm with you. It was kind of meh. But I think with Evans in particular, I think what we're seeing is a reliever learning how to be a starter. Like, it didn't shock me that it was a situation where it was 3-0 and then he couldn't get out of the 4th inning or struggled in the 4th inning, because that's about when, as a reliever, you would expect someone to start to struggle the second time through the order, maybe leaking into the 3rd time through the order if the team is swinging the bats well, maybe starting to get a little bit fatigued. And there's just a learning curve of just like learning how to navigate that as a starting pitcher. So I would put that mostly at the feet of that. So, and then with Schmidt, like, I think it's kind of a similar thing where he's just being asked to do a lot more. And I don't think it was an accident that last year, after such a good start when he was pitching in midweeks, they elevated him into a larger role, but it never seemed like he really found a role as a high leverage guy for them last year. So I just think expectations in general are a little more modest for him. But if, again, that kind of talent as your Sunday guy is pretty doggone good, and you'll take that every time.
No doubt. 11 walks in 2 SEC innings last year. That's the problem. It's just got to get sorted out here in his sophomore campaign. Joe, I'll let you get back to the baseball. Really appreciate you making some time and safe travels home from Texas.
All right, Hunt. See you, buddy.
He's Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team, Highway to Hoover podcast, D1 Baseball podcast as well. I catch he and Mark Etheridge every single week, usually on Mondays when I'm doing some cooking. I turn on the Highway to Hoover and catch the weekend recap. It's always really, really good. Joe and Mark travel all over the Southeast watching these games, so I think they've got a great eye for what they're doing, great content, and I always appreciate Joe on Thursdays. He was traveling yesterday while I was on the show the whole time, so now he was good enough to jump on Friday, so thanks to Joe for that. Remind you about Gotro's Outdoor Power. Gotro's Outdoor Power. We start talking baseball, it's grass growing season. Nothing like that smell of fresh cut grass. Cut it with a zero turn from the folks at Gotro's Outdoor Power. Look, you're talking about 22 years in business for the Gotro family, Baton Rouge and Gonzales. They've got the largest parts inventory in the state of Louisiana, also the largest Hustler inventory in the state by a long shot. You don't believe me? Drive by the Airline Highway location. Check it out. You'll see it. They got a ton of those orange zero turn mowers out there. So if you're a business or if you've got a little bit of land that you need to get to cutting this year, you can get a zero turn from a lot of different big box stores. But do you get the customer service that comes from the folks at Gotro's Outdoor Power? You don't. They're going to get you behind the wheel of one of those financing options for less than $100 in some cases. So go by and see them on Airline Highway or in Gonzales. It's Gotro's Outdoor Power. Appreciate them for being a part of the show for this baseball season. Tigers lead 1-0 over Illinois. A balk has just put runners on second and third for LSU with John Pearson digging in, so hopefully LSU can add to that lead. I think Case and Evans has looked pretty good early on, so I'll keep an eye on that, and we'll continue to push forward here on this Friday edition of the show. We got a lot of football that we're going to get to over the course of the next hour and 15 minutes. I can't believe it's already been 45 minutes. That feels like it's absolutely flown by here on this Friday, which is a good thing. We're 15 minutes away from Ross Jackson joining us to talk about the Saints offseason. Sam Spiegelman has some recruiting talk in 45 minutes. ESPN put together a ranking of college football's top 100 quarterbacks of the 2000s, so I want to make sure we get into some of that. And plus, they've got 2026 MLB draft rankings for LSU's current players and for some of the folks in their high school class, so we'll get into some of that to close out hour number one. Don't go anywhere. It's a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC. FabryChevrolet.com is that website, of course. The entire inventory is right there at FabryChevrolet.com. All of it. So whatever you're looking for from a Chevy perspective, from a GMC perspective, it's there at FabryChevrolet.com. Maybe you're looking for an SUV. They've got them. They've got your Tahoes. They've got your Yukons. They've got your Denali's. It's all there on the lot, and you can check it out online. But if you're looking for a truck, those Silverados up to $11,000 off MSRP. If you're looking for a Sierra, up to $13,000 off MSRP, 0.0% APR financing. You know the Fabry family. They've been here for 35 years, okay? They've got an unbelievable reputation for a reason because they give you a great buying experience, wonderful customer service after the sale, and they're so thrilled that they've got this new Chevrolet GMC point there in St. Francisville. Make the short drive from Baton Rouge. You're in Point Capee or the Felicianas. Head on over to Highway 61 in St. Francisville and see my friends at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Again, you can find that whole inventory online at FabryChevrolet.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Official bat of Major League Baseball right here in Baton Rouge. They cranked this thing up back in 2004 in a backyard shed. Kind of a labor of love. All of a sudden, 22 years later, they're the authority in bat making, and it's right here in Baton Rouge. And they want to invite you to take a tour. It's a really cool facility. It's an awesome tour. They make 1,200 of these bats every single day, ship them off around the world to the greatest players in the world. And you can go see that. If you've got a youth baseball team that's firing things up, youth softball team that's firing things up. I know the Myers man has practice starting tomorrow for T-ball, first one ever. Take your team over there and take a tour. You can grab some of those bats, take some hacks in the hitter's house. And look, every single tour ticket comes with 20% discount to the campus tour store and into the hitter's house. So it can also be financially beneficial to you to go by and see him over there at Marucci. Just an incredible, incredible gym here in Baton Rouge that I think the city needs to wrap its arms around and go check out because it's a really cool spot. That's why we tell you about it each and every day. Marucci is the official bat of Major League Baseball. You can find them online at maruccisports.com/campus-tour. LSU is playing some good baseball right now. Casey Evans done very well through 2 innings at this point. LSU has 5 hits. They've scored a pair of runs, and they're hitting the ball hard. Stephen Milam just hit one right on the screws with a runner in scoring position, and the Indiana shortstop made a sensational backhand pick and fired to second base to get the third out of the inning. So it's been a quality start to LSU, and they're up 2-0 now, headed to the bottom of the third inning. We'll see if Case and Evans can't keep progressing. Keep in mind, LSU and Notre Dame, 11 o'clock Central Time tomorrow, and then LSU in Central Florida scheduled for 2 o'clock on Sunday. LSU is the second game on Sunday at 2 o'clock. That first one is at 10. We'll see if they get that thing finished up early enough. You know how Sunday games can get, especially with teams that are lesser programs. And I think Indiana and Notre Dame are solid programs, but you can realize that they may not have dominant pitching on Sunday. There's a possibility that game goes a little bit longer and LSU doesn't start right on time there. But that's the plan, at least, for the weekend over in Jacksonville. Kylie McDaniel is ESPN's lead scout. He writes up all of their MLB draft content over at ESPN. He came out with his top 64 of this draft eligible class. And I'll say this, and I say this looking at LSU's roster currently and the signing class. It's a light load for LSU in this top 64. I mean, technically, if you're looking at your high school class, you don't want 7 guys in the top 15. That's how LSU got burned this past year, and Jay Johnson's mentioned it a couple times, but only 4 LSU-centric players in this. They're not LSU Tigers because Derek Curiel and Jake Brown aren't, but Logan Schmidt and Jensen Hirschkorn are not. And those are the 4 guys on this list that have LSU ties. Curiel is listed at number 6 on this. I don't know that Derek Curiel is going to hit 15 home runs this year, and if he hits like 7 or 8 like he did last year, I still think he's probably 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th pick in the draft because power is a premium tool, and Derek is not the fastest, and he's not a guaranteed pro center fielder. I think he can stick in center field, but he's not guaranteed there. So if you're talking about a left fielder with a I don't mean average as in like he's in the middle of the pack. I mean he hits for a batting average. So a batting average left fielder potentially is going to get degraded a little bit, even though he's an elite bat-to-ball guy. If Curiel proves this year that he can hit 15 college home runs with a metal bat as just a sophomore who turns 21 right before the draft, now all of a sudden you've got a prospect that ticks into the top 5. There's not a lot of room for him to move up, but if he is going to, it's going to be because he plays great defense in center field and hits for some power this year. But Curiel is 6th on this list. The other current LSU Tiger is Jake Brown at 46. And that puts him right at the front of the second round because you got the first round there with the 30 picks, and then you got the comp picks. I'm not sure how many compensatory picks there are in the first round this year, but it's usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 10. And then you would have him 6 picks into the second round at 46. I think Jake Brown can move up. If Jake Brown hits 18 homers and shows that he can keep his front shoulder in and hit left-handed pitching, especially left-handed breaking balls, then I think he can move up as a late first-round pick. That's a possibility, I think, for Jake Brown. He's a good enough athlete and certainly has the power and as a left-handed hitter with a big arm. I don't think he's a pro center fielder. I think he's a pro right fielder. But that's a position that they like. It's not catcher. It's not shortstop. It's not center field. But I would suggest that right field and second base are probably close. And Jake Brown's got all the tools you need to do whatever you need to do outside. And he'll get a chance to play center field in the early minor leagues. Just a matter if he sticks there when you get to the big league level. But Jake Brown at 46. So those just 2 Tigers on the list. I'm fascinated that Stephen Milam didn't make this list. I understand he's 5'7". I understand he doesn't hit for a ton of power, and he's probably a second baseman, even though he made a brilliant play earlier today going to his left in the hole on the Indiana leadoff man and gunned him out as he did a pop-up slide. It was a great play, and he is a truly great college shortstop. But he's not on this list. The 2 LSU signees on this list are Logan Schmidt, who is a 6'4" left-handed pitcher from California who throws 96. He reclassified, so he's a year younger, which means if he got to LSU, he would have to be a 3-year player. That's a monster name in this class, but at number 22 on the early list, that's not a super awesome indication he'll be at LSU, especially when you consider he's 6'4" and throws 96. And then you got Jensen Hirschkorn, who is a right-handed pitcher from from California. He's number 29 on this list, 7 spots lower. He's 6'7", and I watched some video of him from one of the high school showcases in Phoenix. He's good. He's really tall. He throws really hard, and he's got a good slider. So look, when you look at 2 of the top 4 high school arms in the country, according to Kylie McDaniel on this list, that's not super encouraging that they would end up at LSU. But it's only 2 guys. Last year's class and the class before, you were talking a lot of guys at the very top of that draft that ended up not at LSU. I don't really count Connor Griffin in that he was never going to show up, but you had a lot of guys in that, 30 to 65 ranked where you think maybe they can creep into the 3rd or 4th round and you can entice them to LSU, and those are tough ones. It's only 2 guys and it's arms. I'm hopeful that the 2 LSU guys, Jake Brown and Derek Curiel, can elevate their status this year. That means they've had a phenomenal season. But just 4 guys in Kylie McDaniel's initial top 64. And we'll get to draft stuff way down the line. But today, when I'm not going to talk a lot about LSU's current baseball team and like what you want to see because they're literally playing right now, I figured it was a good time to sprinkle it in on a Friday. So glad we could get to that. That's going to just about do it for hour number 1. Fast-moving hour here on this Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Reminder that we're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp, Jumbo Gulf Shrimp, clean, crispy fried catfish, those shoestring fries. They love to do catering as well over at Cork. So if you've got an event coming up, whether it's a birthday party, whether you're watching an LSU baseball game or you're tailgating out at the box, or you got a youth baseball game and it's your job to feed the team, Corks loves to feed in bulk. They're happy to do it and get those big trays of catfish, shrimp, French fries. It's a great hit. And also, if you want a po' boy, get on by Corks. Government between Foster and Jefferson, always a great option. If you missed any of our first hour, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Preston Guy was with us talking some LSU football at 1:15, and then at 1:30, Joe Healy checked in from Arlington talking some baseball. A lot of football to get to in hour number 2. Ross Jackson's here in 5 minutes. We'll talk recruiting with Sam Spiegelman in 35 minutes. We'll come back after Sports Center on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. SwingEasyGCBR.com. You're probably knocking off work right about now. Maybe you're already off work for the day, but if you're not, you're knocking off. You're thinking about the weekend. Weather doesn't look awesome tomorrow, I'll be frank. And then the high is like 60 on Sunday. It might be damp out there, a little bit chilly. Maybe not the perfect conditions for you to go play golf. I got great news for you. You can play golf indoors at Swing Easy Golf Club. Go check them out over there, Segan at Perkins. You can play on their simulators. Bring some friends. They'll bring you a bucket of beers from right up there in the front. Bring you some seltzers. You can crank the tunes, watch some TV. It's a great place to hang out and play some golf. You can play Pebble Beach, play TPC Sawgrass, test your friends on the Island Green, that tournament they give away the big jacket for. They got that course on there as well. You can go play that. Go on by and see them. Great place to socialize. Great place to hang out. And what I don't always tell you, but I can here, you can become a member at Swing Easy Golf Club. Ask about that when you go by. Segan at Perkins at Swing Easy Golf Club, SwingEasyGCBR.com.